Howdy, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. My name is Crinitix.
And I'm Stoic, and this is the Community Chat Show.
Your one-stop shop for all the latest in the CCS community.
With us today, we're really excited to have Dagnie, who has gold rings on almost all the heroes. So he's playing Flex for CCS 5, Can't Cleanse Salt. And without further ado, Dagnie, tell us about yourself.
Hi. So thanks for having me here, Kren and Stoic. It's been fun playing with the both of you over the course of the last couple of months. So I guess this season I've been playing NGS. What season is NGS into right now? 11? 10?
11.
So this season I'm playing with Can't Cleanse Salt with Crinitix as captain. So that's been quite the experience. In past seasons, I've played with another group of personal friends of mine, either going by the name of #Believe or 10 Armor, but kind of like the same core group of people. We've just kind of gotten to a point where we've taken a little bit of a break. It's kind of been a wild year with the pandemic and all that, and everybody's kind of had different ways of splitting off. I don't know. I've played a fair amount of amateur leagues. I think I definitely played two leagues of chair league back in the day, or 2 seasons of chair league back in the day, maybe 3 partially while I was doing grad school. So yeah, that's kind of a summary of it right off the bat.
Excellent. Chair league.
Yeah. So a little bit back. I've definitely been playing. I've been playing HOTS really since Alpha came out. I think I started in, I can't remember if it was March or May, somewhere in that point in time. I think it was May, and I ran into one of my friends that I went to high school back, and just because we've played a bunch of Blizzard games together, but didn't really have our friends thing set up. I don't know. We actually recognized each other by the avatar or our avatar name. So he recognized me by Dagnie, and I recognized him by Dav at that point in time. And then we started playing quite a bit.
What's the story behind Dagnie, if you can give us, if it's not too personal?
Oh yeah, no, that one's it's funny. It's from Atlas Shrugged, I believe. I got into a kick of reading a lot of Ayn Rand back in college, and not that I'm a big Ayn Rand fan, but I think that she's got some interesting pieces, definitely some weird pieces as well, as far as her philosophy and objectivism and whatnot. But I don't know, it was just kind of a really interesting piece where that was for me, it was one of the first really strong female characters that I had read about, and that's basically kind of at that point in time, that was when my World of Warcraft character was a female character, so that's kind of the avatar I went with that.
That's pretty cool. So it seems like you've been kind of in this world for quite a long time, right? Playing since Alpha, playing in multiple different amateur tournaments. Is this something that you've been resonating with the competitive side since day one, or was there something that kind of sparked that interest for you?
Well, this is my first MOBA. I played Heroes of New Earth a couple of times with some friends, and Dota 2 a couple of times with some friends. I've played, what was it, over-the-top strategy, real-time strategy games since Orcs and Humans, right? Warcraft original back in the day. I've played quite a bit of We used to network computers for Warcraft 2 to do play games that way, and then throughout that history moved on to StarCraft and whatnot. So I've always played Blizzard games, and so have always kind of continued on in that path. So as far as going professional or competitive, I don't know. I played a lot of World of Warcraft, like I'm sure a lot of people have, and so kind of networking over over video games was pretty easy to get up and get going. So kind of when we found out about Chair League, I think at that point we had 4 people that we were pretty consistently playing with. So getting our 5th person was kind of the natural step to getting that up and going. For at least for HOTS. Yeah.
So I'm curious. Yeah, no. How did you starting there with Chair League? That's in my mind. I'm relatively new to the scene. Chair League feels like ancient history. How did you find out about it? And then was it a Reddit post? Was it something on the Heroes Twitter? And then how did you go? This is for us.
Yeah, definitely read it. It was something that sounded pretty fun. We were playing, like I said, we had a pretty core group of 4 people for a good long while that we were playing with, and that sounded like a fun thing to do. And it really we got to the point where we found looped in a 5th player at some point, and once we got that person locked in, we were able to I think we did like two seasons in a row. Took a season off, and then got another season out of that before Chair League kind of went the way of the dodo bird. Or however that went down.
So for anyone in chat, and I know myself included, who isn't familiar with Chair League, could you give us like a little glimpse into what that was kind of like back in the day?
Yeah, I can't remember, like, you had to sign up for a team, and then it's kind of similar to NGS if I remember right. I haven't looked at the website in quite a while, but once you get your team registered, then it was a little bit more like, where do you expect your team to be at, kind of thing. And so then you'd have a different variety of ranks. I can't remember what ranks the structure that they used at that point in time. But I think it was pretty similar to NGS's, like, A, B, C, and what have you. And so you find yourself placed in that, and then they would have you doing, I think, 1 week or 1 game a week scheduled, and then you'd have like 2 that you'd have to fill in for the full season. But I think that my memory might be a little fuzzy, because that apparently has been a little while now. So it was like a weekly game, and I think I think that was pretty much what it was, which was a little nice. I know when we moved over to NGS, we had to do 2 games a week pretty regularly, and that got to be a little bit much as far as getting multiple games in, and then trying to get some practice games in together.
And so this group you're playing with, these core guys, these are guys and gals, whatever it might be. These are people that you're real life friends with, or they are people that you made friends with in World of Warcraft, and then it kind of carried over.
Yeah, let's see. Friends from one friend from high school. One's a friend of a friend that's I've known for 10+ years now, and then another is become friend of a friend that's become closer friends. One that I hadn't met at that point in life. I played StarCraft 2 with this individual quite a bit, and then not broke off. We'd like stop playing together for a while, right? And then started playing together again in HOTS, and then they actually moved into the States, so we've spent hung out a couple of times in person now since then. Obviously not in the last year, right? But and then another one was like friend of a friend. So it's kind of just like a natural group of people just kind of like get along really well, who've got varying different ideas and backgrounds, and like to game together.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that you've been playing, like you played some titles like the first Warcraft, first StarCraft. Do you remember what your first Blizzard game was?
I know I had a copy of Blackthorn on the Super Nintendo. I don't know whether I played that before the Orcs versus Humans, because I know those are both quite old at this point in time.
Yeah, Super Nintendo's like almost before my time, before I even played video games. I mean, and Blackthorn, like, I'm not that familiar with it. What was it? Similar to the RTS kind of games that Blizzard's really known for?
No. Blackthorn's kind of like I don't even know how you call that. It's like a platformer, but it's like it's a slow, clunkier movement style. There was a couple of games like it at that point in time. One was like Out of This World, I think was the title of one, which was kind of a really cool sci-fi style game. And another one, I can't remember. It was like a little bit more futuristic, kind of Blade Runner-y style. And what Blackthorn was is, I don't know, you're the guys looks kind of a little bit like an amalgamation of like Sylvester Stallone in a tank top and jeans with a Rambo thing on top of him. On top of his head, and just kind of walks around with a shotgun, and you're basically kind of shooting orcs in some foreign planet space time. I don't know. It's weird storyline, weird weird concept, but kind of one of the funner pieces was on the Super Nintendo, you could hide against a wall kind of thing. So if an orc was shooting bullets at you, you basically line back up against the wall and kind of just dodge the bullets. And so you just time it to where you'd have to come back out and fire your shotguns back at him.
It's cool.
Yeah, there's definitely a certain style to it that was pretty fun.
And so it sounds like this is 1994. Have you've been playing video games? I imagine for now that's 25 years.
Probably a little bit longer than that.
Excellent. Do you remember the first, like before Blackthorn? What was the first one you can remember?
Yeah, any game altogether. I do remember playing. I think it was like the Lone Ranger on the original Nintendo, which is something. It was some sort of like cowboy western like game. I think it was the Lone Ranger. And I think later that year I actually ended up getting a Nintendo for Christmas, and so then at that point it was like Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt.
Nice. Real quick, we have a question from chat. Valk's asking how long your hair is.
I don't know, but it's getting long. I cut it once, like a month after. I work remotely, fully remote. So my office went fully remote, like with the pandemic, and so we started going remote probably on the 15th of last year, whatever the Friday was, around that week. So I've had one haircut, like probably in April of last year since then. So it is getting longer.
How long is it going to go?
I was just talking to another friend earlier today who's done a similar thing, except for he didn't cut his hair at all, and he's saying he's going to grow it until he gets a vaccine. The COVID cut.
The COVID cut.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've got a couple of boys, 3 of them. One's 5, one's 3, one's 4 months now, something like that, 4.5 months. But my two older boys, they both have longer hair, and just kind of growing that out, kind of like in that, I don't know, a little bit below ear length kind of thing. Nice curly, natural 70 style hair look. So trying to keep up with them, I guess, a little bit.
The whole team's got a mane. You'll love to see
it. Yep.
Cool. I mean, so this is interesting. If you don't mind, we can ask a little bit about your family here. You got 3 boys. Like, do you play games with your 3 boys?
Not with the 4-month-old, not quite yet.
Yeah.
With the 3 and the 5-year-old, they like to wrestle and tackle and I don't know, either play superheroes or ninja fighting, like with plastic swords and whatnot. So they like to beat me up. But I have been, like, my oldest does watch me play a fair amount. He likes to sneak in and tell me which characters to pick, or pick the skins to get lined up, which he tends to pick heroes that I'm not really good at. So that is probably actually how I started playing Greymane, because my oldest wanted me to start playing him more. And now that's what I play primarily right now with Can't Cleanse Salt, which is kind of funny. The other one that he really likes is Genji. So something about the cyborg ninja.
Nice.
I'm terrible at Genji.
I mean, I've seen your Genji at least once. It looked pretty good.
Mm.
Do you have any plans to, as he gets older, kind of show him how to play, maybe get him his own computer someday? And
yeah, what are we doing? Well, actually, the one thing that's started up more recently that's been fun is we've been playing more chess. My wife watched whatever the show was called,
Queen's Gambit.
Queen's Gambit, and totally geeked out on it. And then I went back and watched it, and we burned through that in a day and a half or something along those lines. And then that's when she found out I played chess back in grade school or middle school or something along those lines, quite a bit. And we've played quite a few games since the Queen's Gambit, and she hasn't beat me yet. And so while Casper's been watching us play chess, he's been starting to want to learn how to, so he knows how to move all the pieces around the board. And he apparently has beaten my wife when she was not paying attention one time, which was quite funny. But yeah, I think kind of starting off more with board games, and then kind of tease that out, transitioning into video games. Kind of think of it as little bit of Pandora's box. Kind of once you open that, like there's a whole barrel of monkeys that you're not even sure what's going to happen there with. So
Yeah, that is true. It is. Games are a very interesting place to head towards.
You never know when they grow up to be a Vikings man.
I think there's a lot of value in games and gaming, especially like you can problem solving and logic. I mean, at least if you're playing more games that are strategic and fashion rather than like chance-based games. I mean, even chance-based games can have some level of of strategy to it. So I think what we're like, kind of our goal is more to try and spend more time in kind of like physical board games, because as time progresses, there's going to be more and more abilities to play. There's going to be plenty of time to play video games as he gets older, and more opportunities too. It would be fun to play HOTS with him at some point in time. I would not be surprised if that does happen at some point down the line, but it'll probably be a couple more years out before we go that route.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm interested in the chess thing, because Brainer came on, in a previous episode and talked about his experiences with chess, and I've seen Brainer play chess on his stream sometimes as he's in between queue. Do you find that there's a strategic connection between chess and Heroes of the Storm? Like, do you think that, I guess really what I'm asking here more generally, like, do you find that skills in chess translate well to other video games?
Yeah, so with Heroes of the Storm and like multiplayer RTSs, right? Like so StarCraft, there's that strategic thinking, but it's on the fly. So you've got like high pressure to make your decision, and it gets even more so when you have teammates that you're relying on. So then there becomes a communication aspect. With chess, that's depending on how you're playing it. Like you've got all the time in the world to think out your moves, kind of thing. So, I mean, I could see those two attracting similar mindsets, kind of thing. And I'm sure there's some benefit from having a chess background, right, and being able to apply that to real-time strategy games. But I think like with chess, like you got to do a lot of prep work. Not a lot of prep work, but the more practice you are, the more games you've played, the more you'll know what you'll be going up against in a lot of ways. Kind of the same thing with HOTS or StarCraft. The more times you've played, the more like you're looking for information or cues or pieces of information that that the map is giving you or the board game is giving you, and you're making your decisions around that from there.
You said in chess, it's about thinking out these moves, that you have this time to do so. When you approach other video games that have these a communication element as well as this the instantaneous element, are you still trying to? I'm thinking about StarCraft is what I'm most connected to other than Heroes of the Storm. Are you still trying to think out those moves, or is it more on the fly decision making?
Yeah, I think a strong amount of that is on the fly. I think like you can do quite a bit of like your early game choice making kind of thing. Like you're looking at merc timings, you're coming up with whatever cheesy strat that you're trying to do at the very beginning. If you're trying to get a well or knock down a tower, or if you're just gonna min-max your quests because you've got more quests on your team's talent pool than the other team. Whatever thing you're looking at, you can kind of have that as like a general rule or general game plan, and then from there, you're kind of adapting to the board as it changes, right? Like you don't know how your team is. You can have some ideas as far as like how your team fight is going to be versus their team fight in the draft, but you're not really going to see how that happens until like your first couple of tuffles, I guess, or first I don't know, first little fights. That said, there's some pieces that happen over and over, right? Like different objectives. There's different ways of approaching different objectives. And different like kind of thematic occurrences, like a boss fight. Like there's multiple times where that you're going to experience either engage into a boss or like that you're taking a boss at a risky time, and I don't know. And so there's kind of like you can have some ideas as far as how that's going to play out a little bit ahead of time as well, if that makes sense. Hopefully my cat wasn't just coming up through the microphone. I could hear in the background through the wall that was just not having a good time.
Yeah. Oh, I could hear just a little bit there. It's fine. Summer also just crawled across the floor behind
Yeah,
me, not wanting to be seen on the camera. So it's all good.
yeah.
Nice. The pro strap.
A few times this bit is I've definitely had my newborn like just on my lap in a work call, just being like, "All right, well, what's going on?"
So, kind of take us through. You mentioned how you had this group of five, and you started out. Your team names were believe #believe or 10 armor.
Mhm.
Uh, how did that kind of look when you guys first came together and you were first playing competitively? Like, what was your first like match together like? If you can remember now, I know it's probably been quite a while.
Sure, right? I mean, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't even begin to tell you. I think at that point in time, we were just we had played a ton of quick league and or excuse me, quick match and probably team league together at that point in time. So we had some. We didn't really have defined roles set out, and I was definitely really against pushing for that for quite a while. I know when we moved over into NGS, that's when we kind of settled into having this person's going to be playing a tank, this person's going to be having a healer, this person's doing damage and off lane and whatnot. So we were because we were just playing whatever we wanted to play at that part, at that point in time in draft. We were pretty strong as being able to like come up with whatever combination of players that made sense at that point in time. So that was kind of one thing that kind of progressed there from like the starting out point. I mean, I don't know, it was like we kind of learned how to play together in team league, I think, at that point. So like we kind of went through a lot of growing pains as far as like getting frustrated with each other and then figuring it out and kind of keep working it through kind of thing. So
For sure, yeah. So you said that you kind of have more defined roles now. Is that something that's like consistent across seasons, or you guys kind of switch out between, the season I play tank, next season you play tank?
I think they tend to be pretty stronger now. That we will switch if somebody's gravitating towards something else, but that doesn't necessarily happen too often. So
Yeah, okay. So if I'm not sure if there necessarily is an answer for this, but where does the name like #believe and 10 armor specifically? I'm curious about #believe. Like, what is it that you guys #believe in?
yeah, I think part of that was originally making ridiculous plays, kind of thing that shouldn't have worked out, and so it was kind of like we would have like random call outs like let's go invade this boss camp on take a 1920 fight and #believe, just commit all in kind of thing. And then surprisingly it would work out more. It would work out from time to time. I don't want to say more often, but it would work out from time to time in surprising ways.
What's the secret behind the taking the 1920 fight?
I mean, I don't know, perplexing the other team a little bit, being scrappy. I think scrappy team fights. We definitely had some really capable players that were able to kind of, I think, creating some chaos where some teams get really really good with we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and then just coming in at a weird angle or at an odd time, or even if they're expecting it, kind of thing, taking a fight that they're not quite expecting or ready for, kind of thing. Most of the time, they wouldn't be the best fights to take, but a lot of the times they would work out pretty well for us. So it was kind of the idea with that one. I know one of our players tended to play a lot of Falstad, and he would just scream out every once in a while over the comms, esports, and go fly across the other team, bring us back. And whether it was a good idea or not, it would happen, and we would just know that it's going to be crazy.
Nice.
Doesn't always work, but it's more about it really. I think at the end of the day, it's more about having a good time and having a lot of laughs along the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that how you? So like, I'm curious, in approaching the game with #believe, was it a primarily for like we like playing this game, we like playing together, let's do this to have fun, or was it more for like let's have fun and be a competitive team? Like how'd you balance those two?
Yeah, I don't think like we're all what is it? I'm 38 now, so that's probably been a while now. It's like we're all working professionals, so we're not trying to become esports famous. We just really like playing this particular game and other games too, but this one in particular. And so it was more about having fun, and really HOTS is, I think, at its best version of itself is in a structured environment. You can, quick match. I know, like, I think Cavalier Guest is always like just ripped on quick match being like the main played function of HOTS, where it doesn't even teach you how to do draft or play with your team at all. It's just kind of a big scrappy fight the entire time. Like there's not a good clean gradual play up. So and I would agree with him there 100%. Like with Hero League, that's fun where you're trying to learn to better improve on yourself, kind of thing. With Team League, and you're getting people into comms, and this is historically speaking, right, where you're actually starting to group up with people and try and be a little bit more strategic or work better together, create plays that you've done in the past. I don't know, and it's kind of a good way to like start building a nice tight knit team. Obviously now that's Storm League, so you can do either or on the fly. But going from that Team League piece into the competitive version, like it really once you have like a good group of people that you're repeatedly playing the game with, you can swap in and out of like a sixth or seventh man, whatever. But like you start speaking the same language, you start having the same expectations. You can rely on people without having to waste time on that verbal communication point kind of thing. Like you can know when somebody's going to overstep on your team, or and that you're going to need to save them, or you can know that one person's going to be a little bit more passive and leave the fight a little earlier than you want, kind of thing. And you can just kind of like there's those invisible or it's just more intimate team play, which is really fascinating how that works out.
Yeah, it's interesting because what you described there kind of it reminds me of what Ramdi was talking about. I think it was Ramdi about like the improvement pyramid, where the bottom, the first kind of block to build is consistency, right? Just kind of playing together a lot, figuring out what the other people do, moving up to support, and then trust and cohesion. And yeah, it reminds me a lot of that kind of talk. Do you feel, because I mean you've been playing with #Believe or 10 Armor now for how many years did you say you've been playing together now?
I bet 4 is a pretty, like I'll still play with those guys any given night, kind of thing, whenever the kids are off to bed and whatnot, and they're still up. So yeah, probably pretty strongly 4 or 5 years now, right?
Yeah, so I mean I know that I can at least speak for myself, but like there's probably a lot of people in chat that haven't been playing with the same group of people for that long.
Mm-hmm.
What is it like? I guess the first question is, do you feel as though you guys have kind of reached that state of cohesion where you're all kind of on the same page, like anytime you play, like there's no confusion? Or
not at all. Not at all. It's a weird game. Like I think I've had a lot of like I tend to do like late night philosophy talks after one too many beverages with my buddies. I think a lot of the times talking on this, it kind of comes down to like you can see how much your offline life can affect your in-game life, kind of thing, and not like what I mean by that is like I've definitely gone through varying levels of stress, high stress points in life and low stress points in life over the course of the last 5 years. I went through what was it? Started up grad school, had my second. My wife had her second child, and then our third. We obviously had the pandemic in here as well, and a variety of work and this and that kind of thing. So it's like, if you were to rate or measure or evaluate your happiness over time, I could definitely look back at my hot slugs MMR and see what times were a little bit more stressful, what times were a little bit less stressful, what times were a little bit more stressful, and just kind of see how that zigzags over time.
I'm curious if when real life, life outside of the video game is more stressful, is that an MMR peak or trough for Dagnie?
I've found that to be a trough for for sure, because my patience is less. So I'm not coming in with an open mind, not coming in like ready to go kind of thing. Like not I don't want to say I'm not at peace kind of thing. I'm ready to play games and de-stress, but yeah, it's like there's I don't know, it's like your shoulders are a little tighter, or you're still thinking about something else, or you're easier to tilt, right? And I think in HOTS especially, that's kind of one of the really important pieces there is having that capacity to, I don't know, see somebody doing some poor choice on the map and still be able to type out something positive or some sort of affirmation of, don't worry, we can pull this back. I promise you, if you played with me, especially some nights I've not been that polite, I can. I try to be. But I'm not a perfect person.
It's interesting. Does your #believe or 10 armor? Do you guys have one particular person on the team who's usually that kind of beacon of like positive mental attitude, or is it kind of divvied up among everyone?
I would say it's divvied up among everyone for sure. And everyone has kind of had their rotation as far as being a bit of a downer, right? Or has been in a bad mood or super tilted or tilty kind of thing. Like you kind of can't when you've played this many games for that long kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Are you the captain of that team, or do you have another?
I mean, we're all friends. So we rotated doing like responsibilities as far as like scheduling or shot calling or I mean, I do talk a lot more on the microphone, which can work positive and can not sometimes. Yeah, so I wouldn't say it like I think we probably pretty equally distribute roles pretty well.
I'm interested. Talk to me about the mechanics of rotating responsibilities like that. Like, because I'm like, would one season one person would act as like, I will schedule the matches with our opponents, and then the next season, oh, you'll do this. Like, how does like,
Yep.
how did you decide who would do it, what season, and how did like people give up power or trade powers? Like, that's a fascinating idea for me.
Yeah, I mean it's capacity in some cases. I know. I know at one point I was doing that for chair league, and then I started up grad school, which I ran out of time to do a lot of things. I still played with the guys, and I know they were running it for they ended up taking more of that mantle on when it came down to like scheduling matches. I know I started off doing that, and I passed that off to one of the other teammates, and they just didn't like doing it. Like it was really, actually, we went through two of the others, and it was really stressful for them. I do a lot of recruiting in my job for research stuff, and so it's really easy for me. I've kind of got the habit down, and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's not a lot of after you get like the scheduling down, there's not a lot of administrative things when you're running a team in that regards, right? Maybe when you're setting up scrims, but I mean, we were to the point where we wouldn't set up practices as much as we would just be on about the same time and playing games most evenings a week.
On the topic of being on a team with your friends, I know that from personal experience, I hesitated to recruit like people that I knew in real life to my to Kent Clint's Salt, despite knowing them and playing HOTS with them, because kind of similar to what Romney said in one of the talks, when you're in an environment of 5 people all trying to accomplish a goal, right? You're almost guaranteed to have somebody you agree with and somebody you disagree with, right?
Okay.
Do you find that like I guess I'm trying to think how to word the question. Like, how is there any sort of deliberate effort made to separate like friendship and competitiveness, or like does it ever interfere? Like, what's that kind of like trying to deliberately improve while also like just being buddy pals with people?
Right. I think there's a couple of pieces to that, right? One piece is like how far are you trying to go, right? Like we're playing for fun, and we want to win, but we're not expecting to, we'll get a sponsorship or something along those lines, right? So it's whatever we can get away with. I think in general our measurement of success comes down to, it's like, did we feel like we played well, and did we get a good win, kind of thing? Did we win, right? Like there's some games where that you'll have that are they just get trounced, right? And you can't really kick yourself too badly there. And then there's some games that, the ones that have traditionally been harder are close ones that slip through our fingers. And so those are the ones we probably walked away being pretty either frustrated with wherever the weak spot was, or what happened there. So what did we take from that? We'll have discussions about it afterwards, or if it was really close, we'll go back and watch the replay. Usually we had a pretty good idea of what was happening there and what was the cause. So, and what we kind of need to do a little bit differently. Did we do that the next time? I don't know. But we would be aware of it and be able to talk through and try to make some overarching changes that way. The other part, kind of how was it working with friends? Like, was there conflict there? And yeah, there has been sometimes some conflict. We'll be silent or give each other the cold shoulder for a couple of days or whatever, and then chat it out. Usually come back around, and it's not that big of a deal. As far as, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that anything in game has really caused any like long term like frustration points. Like each person's got their own strengths, and each person has their own weaknesses. Like some people will leave a little too early, some people will stay too long, and yeah. So it's kind of like I think you're referencing the CCS demo development days thing talk with Rodney, right? The one thing that he was calling out a couple of times that he called out in that talk was 3 people in that group will agree with each other and 2 people won't. And I thought that was a really fascinating one, especially having a long period of time to like reflect on that concept. And one of the more interesting pieces is there's a lot of dynamics within Heroes of the Storm that you can have fluidity between who those 3 and 2 people are. So like if you're looking at it from macro play or from team fight or from drafting or from, I don't know, when to be aggressive and when to be more passive, right? When to be patient. And so like kind of each of those dynamics, like each person kind of has their, I don't know, different scorecard of different attributes kind of thing. So it's kind of interesting, like learning, and that's I think where he really was calling out, like playing with people and learning those consistencies. You can learn those unspoken attributes or values that people bring to the game.
Mm-hmm. I want to quickly touch on something you mentioned there about like all the members having their own strengths and weaknesses. This may be kind of hard to answer, but like, what do you feel like your biggest strength and biggest weakness are? I know it kind of sounds cliche, but
I didn't have the lowest KDF, but KDA, but I definitely was close second. So that's probably a big weakness. Is I'm more interested in doing sacrifice exchanges. My first couple of heroes were Tyrael and Uther. So, and this is into MOBAs, right?
Trade
so
value. Let's go.
If Liam was out at that point in time, I would have been up there. I blame that. So I think if there was a thing that I probably could really improve on is that attribute, right? But I tend to want to, and I actually, part of that is I would say it's partially a strength, is I want to make sure that people get out. So like I think one of the things that drives me nuts is when a full health teammate player, wherever it is when you're kind of like running away with a glimpse of health kind of thing, and you have somebody right in front of you with full health. Like I'll body block with Liming if I'm full health on somebody who's trying to get away, and then get out because I'll have enough health or whatever too. So I would say the strength is like, just being willing to sacrifice yourself to get for the greater good, or to get your teammates out. That opens up like another, Pandora's box. Is like, well, if they don't suffer the consequences, are they ever going to learn? I don't know. Is that the point? Like, are you supposed to be the teacher mid game? Probably not, but who knows?
That raises a fascinating point that I'm surprised we've gone through 5 episodes now without it coming up. Like the idea of pet peeves and HOTS. What like do you have any other like glaring pet peeves that you just are completely aware of, and anytime someone does it, it's just like, man.
I mean, if we were playing a couple of matches, I'm sure we can come up with a couple. No, I think that one's a big one. I think the one where you leave somebody behind when you're full health is like you've got the resources, you've got the everything, like you just don't have the communication readily. It doesn't happen nearly as often, obviously, in games where you've got live comms going, right? But but in Storm League that does happen pretty regularly. Yeah, I think in Storm League maybe one thing is like, I don't know, like you do have people that when people start turning toxic mid game, it's really funny to kind of think about like how they're saying something and they want something to change, but and to that point what I just said, it's like it's almost like they're trying to teach you something, but you're not you're playing a game that's still going, and the how dynamic it is, like you don't really get that teaching moment or that learning moment until you do it a bunch of times and you learn it on your own kind of thing. Like I can't think of, unless somebody is like explicitly taken the time to type out like a concept to me, which takes more than one sentence. Like there's not really a thing that somebody can tell you that you're going to learn. So yeah, maybe I'm just dense.
No, I think that totally makes sense.
Yeah, I'm with it. I think that is an interesting perspective to think about. Like, if your goal here is that I do something differently, like this is not the situation, and that's gonna this lasting change of behavior isn't gonna happen from you flaming me while we're both
Right.
still trying to kill their core. Like you in
Right.
base typing to me is not gonna make me listen to you.
Right. And all the different variations of how that comes out.
Yeah.
It's not always the case. They're still trying, right?
Yeah.
So, and that also kind of talks back to like reflecting back on like more stressful times or times that I've been more the person who's been being more toxic, right? Um, uh, with that kind of reflection, self-reflective nature, I guess, that kind of like pushes me to try to communicate in ways that's a little bit more positive. Whether I'm successful at that or not, that's any given Tuesday, but that's a goal that I try to do. Like I think communicating with your team in Storm League at least, and in teams, like there's a lot of strength and value there, whether people realize it or not.
So, I guess more like big picture. Could you paint us a sort of chronological timeline of you and 10 Armor, or any of the teams you've played on, just kind of all the different sorts of competitive experience you have? I know you mentioned you have 2 chair league tournaments, but what all have you played in?
I mean, I think we've done it was either 2 or 3 full seasons of chair league that we did, and that was whether it was 10 Armor or hashtag Believe. That was pretty much the same group of people. We had one person, and then we moved over into NGS after chair league fell apart, I believe. I think we've done like 3 seasons there, and we did 2 seasons, skipped a season, did a season, and then I think we've skipped the last 2 seasons now. So that's, you can look it up on NGS and find that I'm just pulling it out of my rear. But that, I think that's about the ballpark of it. We had one person that we played quite a bit with through chair league and maybe the first season or 2 of NGS, and then they just they got busy with outside life kind of thing. I don't remember what it was exactly. Like they kind of an industry that does like some it's not amateur racing, but it's like that did some like outdoors racing car stuff, and was spending more time doing that at that point in time, and just didn't come back to playing HOTS. So He'll pop on every once in a while, and we'll get a good set of games in with him. But he doesn't play nearly as much as he did. So at that point, we need to come up with another person. So we've had a couple of fill-ins that have kind of like slowly rotated through. I think we had most of them on like the last Nexomania group that we did. Kryn was CCS 5s on Tuesday nights, or were we Thursdays? I think we were Tuesdays, right?
Yeah, in this most recent Nexo, yeah, we were Tuesdays.
The group that I ended up playing with was on Thursdays, and we had 7 people that kind of hit our normal rotation of people that we'll play with. And that's each of them's got their own variety of things that they have to do, right? Like, or responsibilities, whether it's kids or work or whatever. And so it's pretty easy to kind of like get a full 5 stack together at that point in time. So after that main staple individual took off, probably like second season of NGS that we were playing, then we had kind of a little bit more of a rotational group of people that we just randomly met throughout Storm League plays, and they had the right attitude, just generally positive thinking. Wanting to get better, but maybe not, definitely not in the Diamond League area or higher, right? But willing to learn and play, and just generally like be somebody you want to spend a lot of time with. And so that's been kind of the people that we've played with more readily. Because if you're not having fun, like on the core piece of it, because that's what I guess the value that our group was trying to bring to the table, is that we were aiming to have fun and play this game and try and get better at it. And if you're not having fun first, kind of thing, then that doesn't quite work out very well.
Yeah, definitely. On the topic of Nexomania, that transitions perfectly into another question from Valk in the chat. So Valk asks, how many Nexomania belts do you have, and how did you get involved in that?
I don't know. Valk probably started a tournament and said, did we want to have some people play? And I know that's how we met Kryn. We might have played in a game or two before, but that's kind of how we got introduced for that one. The first Nexomania tournament that we played, I was captaining. I think it was Kryn, myself, Zephy, who are all on CCS 5 currently, and then we had another person named Rev, and gosh, I can't remember.
We had Toons and Johnny Ka.
Toons, yeah. Johnny K is a person from 10 Armor, one of the more recent rotators. Toons was cool. He kind of just dropped off. I haven't seen him online lately, but we played that, and for the first Nexomania, I captained through that period. And fun fact, I ended up having spinal surgery this last year from like a car accident. That was like tons of fun. And for the championship, I was like 1 day into recovery from spinal surgery. So I was hands off and got us up to the championship. But the team really kind of pulled that one together to seal the deal. So congrats on you guys for doing that. So apparently I've got a Nexomania championship belt there. This last time around, this is where Kryn's been captaining, basically Can't Cleanse Salt. And just kind of getting a new group of people together that, in the same vein, want to try and learn how to do a little bit better and learn how to play the game, and I don't know, take some wins away from other people. And we were able to do that in the last one.
So that's three championships, or just 2?
2. This is 2 for 2 out of Nexomania. Oh. I think last season, the first season was I don't remember the Valks got quite the name lineups of the different divisions. I think we were in the lowest division last time, and we pulled that one out. This is like the second from the bottom, so I think we're moving from C to Tier A next. I don't know how that's going to work out.
There we go.
Whatever.
I remember we were in El Jefe the first season. I don't remember what the second season was called, what our division was called.
So, but I think it felt like throughout Nexomania we were doing pretty strong, especially in this the second set, the second Nexomania set. So I think and that's carried over into NGS so far this season. So hopefully that's kind of good signs for more competitive games coming up.
Yeah. So we've talked a ton about this core group of the 10
Mhm.
armor group.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear like how did you like you've been doing competitive HOTS for longer than CCS has been a thing. Like well CCS right CCS has been a thing for a long time, but I mean CCS as this amateur organization, this conglomeration of teams. How did you how'd you get involved in the craziness?
With CCS,
Yeah, with CCS.
I think Valve's team beat us at NGS one time, and we got to chatting and played some games afterwards. And Valk's a really quite the social butterfly. I love the guy, and he has a way of like really bringing a lot of people together, and just kind of keeps building and building and building on it. And I don't know. I think it's really fascinating with what he's trying to do. And I haven't even asked him what his master plans are or his overarching plans are with CCS. But it's really fun to see him just kind of build little pieces here, having other people build little pieces there, and just kind of building this whole online community. Kind of and being around long enough to kind of see it expand. Right. I don't know how many active teams we've got for CCS currently, but it's quite a bit.
Excellent. So and then you joined from this like you took the L from that or they took your win there, but how did you end up the 10 armor team kind of says we're gonna split for a little while. It sounded like they all had kind of different things going on. You and Kryn had played together before. Like, did Kryn recruit you? Did you go to Kryn and say, "Yo, I want to play again"? How did
I
that
don't
happen?
know how we got into the first Nexomania team together. I think Valk just kind of like shook up a bunch of names out of a hat, and we kind of landed as like a good group of people that might play well together.
Mm.
I think that's kind of that's how I started playing with Kryn. For Nexomania 2, I know Kryn was wanting to build a team, and because I think that myself and Zephy had worked well with him in the past, I would assume that's kind of why he extended that offer forward. It was a little complicated during that Nexomania piece because I was playing with two teams though, competitively or having and so trying to make sure that you're being present for both, that's a little bit of a challenge. Luckily, or more specifically, the people who I've played with for years, I know them personally. They are a little bit more flexible, not more flexible. It's easy to say, well, I'm busy doing this, so, and they're rooting me on or wishing me well, kind of thing. So in the future, if they want to play some more, then we'll end up doing that. If not, we'll figure that out as whatever. They might just be like some recruits that we pick up for CCS 5 at some point in time, or some other amalgamation of that.
Interesting. Do you think that there's going to be and this is like we're going from like pretty surface to I'm like full on interrogation here now. Like, do you foresee there being a time when the 10 armored team is looking to come back together and that provides this weird tension of like you've now had this time with Kryn and you've had this time with Zephy as this trio, but then you have this the real life pull. Like, is that a possible tension?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's you kind of with anything, right? Like there's a certain natural progression, right? You'll have conversations and figure out what makes the most sense for all parties involved. It's probably the easiest way, most diplomatic way of saying that.
Interesting. I feel like that's like a very diplomatic breakup. Like, this is whatever my decision will be the best for all parties involved. That's good though.
I mean, like if you spend a lot of time playing with people, right? Like you're as much as you're investing in other people, you want them to invest in you. So like you want to have that kind of back and forth, right?
Yeah. With in the same vein of moving from talking about the 10 armor squad to now the CCS 5 squad, what are the main like you've gone from multiple seasons, the same group or the same core to now a relatively new group together. What's that experience like, or what have been some pleasant surprises you've had with being with a whole new group of people?
Yeah, I think this is the part that I was really excited about, is to see what other people would do in different dynamics, right? I was really interested to see how I am really interested to see how things play out. And it was like the team that we're playing with right now is definitely different personality types. And God, I don't want to. I don't know. It's it's interesting. I know in the past I've done a lot of shot calling, and I with Kryn being more the captain, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't talking over him. So I wanted to fall back into kind of like I don't even know. Like here's a thing, here's an opportunity, or like kind of posing questions like, is this what we're wanting to do? Rather than being a direct influencer kind of thing. I mean, I want to contribute my part to the team, but like I don't want to be the one that's making those decisions. And so trying to kind of hit like some auxiliary side role to where I can kind of be more focused on my own play.
Does that idea of like asking these questions, does that come from your professional background doing, user experience research, or is that from something else?
Yeah, I think that kind of like grounds me in that in that mindset a little bit, for sure. I think that also has led to like how we were talking about toxicity within Storm Lake, right? Like thinking about what that person is trying to accomplish, what their goals are. And so with that, like the role that I want to be is how can I make somebody else more successful, right? Or how can I make our team more successful? There's one way of thinking is like, I can do that, right? But that's not very teamy, or right. That's trying to take on too much for yourself. And I definitely want to try and find out. This is more where I'm curious on, like with this particular team, is like, what can I do to kind of like help build up other people, kind of thing. I don't know. It's kind of high level thought.
Yeah. Have you had any
out there, Kryn, and the games that we played together and practices? But I don't know.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Kryn.
I was just gonna say that you have been a positive mental attitude that has been very appreciated in the team culture that has developed so far.
Yeah, Kryn, I mean, I'm gonna ask you a question here. Like, you're dropping this knowledge in the chat. Like, Dagnie is resisting from saying you're all toxic. Do you find, like, I guess I'll use Kryn as a springboard. Like, Dagnie, do you find that like Kryn tends towards this toxicity that you have to pull him back from?
No, not at all.
Okay. Interesting. That's good. I'm glad you're sticking up for
Usually we're good.
Zeffy's the worst.
Usually we're good. There's been a couple moments that have been a little heated, but thankfully we are all adults and we've managed to talk things through. So
yeah,
I think that's.
Well, I think it talks to like the stress of like RTS in general, right? Like individually, like StarCraft, right? Yeah, you're having to make decisions on the fly, and that's like you're processing as fast as you can, and then putting those moves in as fast as you can. And then you can add another layer with HOTS where you're working with a team of 5, and you can have that 3-2 split. You can have everybody going off in their own direction. You can have it really like that pressure is kind of what makes the game pretty fun. And can make it pretty toxic at the same time. I'm not saying that, but it's like that's like the pressure, where the pressure builds up at, and that's kind of really where it gets interesting.
It sounds like you like see that pressure as like the engine that drives the fun of this in a way. Like there's this razor edge of too much and it's toxic, or too little and it's not fun.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that's where the fun comes from. I think like it's nice when you see a well-oiled machine working, right? When things are when you feel like your team is executing the way that you want to, right? Or when you have a team fight that goes the way that you want it to, right? Like you have a plan and it executes and it unfolds exactly like that. That feels really good, But then there's times where the other team actually does, parries your moves, or like they're appropriately bringing up, and you have like a really good crash of your heroes, right? And however that spins out, or however, like sometimes you win those really close ones. I think that's where it gets really fun, is like when you have really close team fights, and it like when both your teams are kind of like able to scuffle in that regard, kind of thing. I think macro play can be, you can get a lot of invisible advantages off of lower level players, but obviously in some amateur competitive pieces, like you're playing at the same skill level to where you're able to have all those forces kind of working together. When it doesn't feel good, it's when you're on the other side of the steamroll, and the rest of the team is just kind of kicking your butt pretty well.
For sure. We are kind of coming up on our hour here. One last thing I wanted to ask is you kind of touched before about sort of plans, master plans. What does the future look like for you as far as HOTS? Do you have? I know that you said that your goal isn't kind of to go pro, just to kind of having fun. But what does the next kind of little bit look like for you?
Well, I think the short term, I've got about 10 heroes left to get to level 15. So I think that's the kind of current side project. So once I get that, who knows? No, I don't know. It's things have been going pretty fun for competitive play. So I think I just want to keep doing that, and find a way where I want to develop next. And this season, doing a lot of like auto attack range and kind of working on some merc timings and trying to I don't know, trying to learn how to as much as I can from this team as possible. And so maybe next season I'll find a different thing I want to focus on. I know solo lane is one that I haven't spent enough time to get a good idea on it, but that might be a kind of a skill set I'd like to look at exploring in the future, maybe. So, yeah.
I mean, now I'm curious. You've played lots of heroes, and your son has pushed you to play some new ones. You're looking to play ranged assassins. There's 87 or whatever in the game right now. What's the best? What's your favorite?
I feel pretty strong at both like tanking and healing. Whether my win rates say that or not, I don't know. But like I feel very confident on both tanking and healing roles from my time with 10 armor. Damage, I've got a few damage rolls that I pick up here and there. I think the kind of where I have a big weakness is by comparison is filling out like the solo laner, and I think that's one I'd like to work on a little bit more. It's either that or kind of like after filling out the gold rings quest. The other one might be like actually isolating down onto a couple of heroes and going deep onto those. That might be a thing I'd do a little bit more. And outside of like my current top 100+ heroes. I don't know.
And that is an active goal of yours, is looking to make sure that you have all of these mastered.
Yeah, right now, for sure. Like, I don't know. The more that you play with each hero, the more that kind of sets you up to understanding your opponent, right? That's kind of the beauty of getting to whatever the level 15 mark is. But you have a good enough understanding of what each hero does, but not just from reading patch notes and theoretical, but like you actually have played them enough to know strengths and weaknesses. Like Murky's one of my lower played heroes, but from playing him a little bit, like that you can really just focus on knocking down the pufferfish whenever you're countering him in lane, and that's I'm sure you can read that somewhere or from watching a Twitch stream, but for me it's definitely from playing that and getting my butt kicked from somebody else. Right, like from what's the thing that shut me down about that hero, and then trying to replicate that in whoever else, and that kind of also builds out into the idea that you can start picking, what talents you want to pick on some heroes. Right, you can go to wherever and find whatever the common optimal build is, but once you start knowing those heroes pretty well, you know what their weaknesses are, and so you can find kind of the side or off talents that you can slide into that will give you a little bit more of an advantage there.
It's interesting you bring that up, because that's as far as like learning characters' weaknesses by playing them. I know that's something that I've learned a lot about in fighting games. Have you ever been like deep in the fighting game community in any aspect?
I wouldn't say deep. I think I did play, and this is dating myself, into Smash Brothers on the Nintendo 64, right? And so played a ton of that with a lot of my high school friends at that point in time. And so that's kind of, there's a certain rock, paper, scissors element to that game, at least from what I remember. And it's been quite a while since I played that. Back in college, I played, it wasn't Tekken, Soul Calibur 2. So this would have been like on GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox was like a tri-release, and they had like a specific hero for each one of those. I think the one that we were playing at that time a ton was on GameCube, and it had Link from A Legend of Zelda, I think. But that one was really fun because there were that rock paper scissors element was super strong there. Like, but it was also kind of like on a three-dimensional board of where you're at facing each other kind of thing. So shifting back and forth and getting some different depth perception versus fighter games that I played previously, which would have been like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. And it's just hitting the combos. But that one was really fascinating to kind of get like that, a little bit more depth into that where you are at relative to the other person. And so there was definitely a certain, like, I don't know, feel that really added to it. Did you guys play Soul Calibur 2 at all, or any of the Soul Calibur games quite a bit?
I played quite a bit of Soul Calibur 2 back in the day.
Yeah. So you kind of know what I'm saying as far as that moving around and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay. That was probably that's the only fighting game I've ever played, really. Because Corinne said, like, Corinne brought out fighting games. I thought, man, I have not played any. Then you said Soul Calibur 2, and I was like, wait, I have played a lot of that.
We play Mitsurugi one-hit kill games. So it'd be like samurai versus samurai, and then like whatever attack you get off wins. Yeah. Like whoever lands first. Yeah.
The flavor, I love it.
Yeah.
It's interesting, right? Like fighting games that kind of like fast-paced one-on-one action kind of teaches you about, matchups and counters, right? But then other games like chess, for example, I know we've talked about that on previous sessions, it kind of teaches you the value of like trading, right? Taking favorable exchanges. What do you think is, like, of all the games you've played, what would be the most like generally applicable lesson you think you've learned, either for life or for other games?
Gosh, that's a good question. I don't have an easy answer to that readily. Trying to think. I'm like scanning through like what games and what have I learned from them, and then trying to flip it around to, it's like, okay, what are my values and what do I find in games, right? I think, okay, this is from like an instruction manual of some like hardcore like simulation game called War in Europe, if I remember right. I've never played it. My best friends have got it. This is like some old 1970s, 1960s hex-based board game when they put out the maps, it's taken up like a wall of their house. They actually put it on this metal slab and then like hung it up on the board. And it's literally the War in Europe in a turn-based game with some like ridiculous level of like nuance to it. Not nuance, but it's like it talks about weathers on calendar days, and it's a simulation game. So it'd be kind of like playing like Civilization. Is kind of a high an easy way of saying it, except for grounded in World War II. But in the book, it says the game is meant to be played, not to win. And so kind of taking this idea of kind of things that I've been thinking about outside of video games is kind of like competition and collaboration and what is it that people are trying to accomplish and what's a good way about doing that. And I've been more like professionally more in the collaboration space, so that probably creates some incentive for me to bring that into the video game or my online personification. And with that idea, like games are meant to be played, is like it's kind of it's not the statement of it is what it is, but it's like just the act of going through the motions and in reaching like fulfillment and whatnot. It's not necessarily to win, right? I think that actually even came out in the Dev Day talk that it's like you want to ask your team what your objective is, right? Like, and you don't want it to, and like ideally you don't want it to be just to win the game or win all the games, because at some point you're going to come across somebody who's better than you, unless you're Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. Like at some point, like you're going to come up with somebody against somebody who is just flat out better than you. And so part of it is like what's the aspect that you want to develop on, right? And that's kind of an interesting piece, is like once you start breaking it out of winning the games, it's like what attributes do I want to develop on? And I think that kind of hits more towards that other question of like, what do you want to do next, right? It's like dive deep into solo laners and fill out the rest of some of my gameplay weaknesses, or focus in on just a couple of heroes and get really good at just a couple of heroes. I don't know. So I think that kind of run a roundabout way answers your question, I think.
Yeah,
I'm just rambling.
No, it's good. I actually just tabbed over and realized we have a bunch of built up questions in the podcast channel. So I'm gonna pop some of these off here real quick. So we already did the hair one. Pardon?
42.
42
is the answer to
all the things.
Yeah.
So Valkymer asks, please confirm, is Dav's name actually Dav IRL, not Dave?
100% Dav.
It's Dav? Okay. Osprey asks, you're pretty untiltable and you never give in to toxicity, which is very admirable and worth emulating. How do you maintain your cool in and game out? Any trick you resort to?
I am not perfect in Storm League. I definitely get tilted in Storm League. It's easier if I'm playing with other people. In a past life, I worked in restaurants, bartended, managed, waitered, hosted, kind of like all the things inside and outside of a restaurant. I've helped open brand new restaurants, and so that's I've often joked about how playing StarCraft perfectly primed me for restaurant work, because it's on the fly, high stress, dynamic thinking. And so where other people in restaurants would be overwhelmed and very stressed out in certain situations, there's a certain amount of like acceptance of like how chaotic a situation can be. And this is in full on dumpster fire days. That's not the majority of the time, but when a dumpster fire does come up, it's like there's only a certain amount of what you can do, and just kind of like prioritizing on the fly.
Yeah, that makes sense. We have another question from Oz. This one is a little unique. So, question for Dagnie. Please describe each teammate, I assume of CCS 5 because of the names later, with a word or phrase that starts with the first letter of their name. Thank you very much, Osprey, for that.
All right.
And then he also says, in case you need it, Crinotix, Nugs, Nira, Retina, etc.
No, I'm working on that. I know. Crap. Excuse me.
There you go, Crinotix.
Yeah. Gosh. I am terrible because I get Nugs and Nira mixed up all the time, and I recognize them by voice and the heroes they're playing, but like Nugs does Hanzo, right?
Yep.
His Hanzo game is but that's not the right letter either. I'm like, Nugs, nice Hanzo.
Nugs, nice Hanzo. Okay.
It's impressive. I'm terrible with that hero. I'm just thinking Dragon Queen for Ret, and I can't come up with a Y. That's it. It's Dragon Queen with a Y. I don't know. Zeffy is right now. The meme is mead, but like honey wine. God, I don't know. Zolane Zeffy.
Yeah, starting with a Z makes that pretty difficult.
Yeah, I admit that Zolane makes that a little bit easier, but I don't know. Nira does a really good job of just like filling in, right? Like comes in really strong with whatever role you need to have him play into, kind of thing. At least that's my opinion of what I've seen with him. His diva's been kind of mean too.
I'm curious. You mentioned dumpster fire as as an idiom. I'm curious, like as a person, you seem to approach lots of these things like very much with like a framework. Like this is the ideology. This is like the response. Like I want to see how people are going to respond to this. Like as a person, IRL, like I think I have an idea of how you'd respond to the the toxicity dumpster fire. If you approached it, if you saw an actual dumpster on fire, I'm curious what you would do.
I mean, do you need to do anything?
I don't know. You could do nothing. You could just like keep walking. Let's say this is like a
like assess it. Is it actually going to catch on fire? Something else on fire, right? Like if you're actually looking at a dumpster, it's a metal box and encapsulated. Sure, the plastic lid might melt away, but if it's away from a fence line, if it's not going to spread, then you really don't need to. You just let it burn itself out.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, what's the impact?
Yeah, I guess that I never even thought about that before. Dumpster fires aren't that bad.
I've lit fireworks in dumpsters, and there's been dumpster fires in real life.
So you're answering from experience here.
Yes, that is a learned experience lesson. So we did not have to do anything with that particular dumpster fire.
And I guess it's true that the dumpster fire of Storm League eventually will just burn itself out, and it'll be over.
Kind of sad.
I guess that is.
Put it that way.
I'm still recovering from laughing.
Do you have any? Do you have any? This is also a little bit out of left field. Do you have any hot takes? You name dropped Cav, for example, before, I think Cav's the greatest. But you've said you're doing a lot of this studying of things yourself, and that's an important part for you. That you want to understand each of these heroes and these matchups. Do you have any hot takes that are different from maybe the CCS community opinion or the competitive community opinion, or maybe even like for CCL stuff?
Man, I think I don't think I have any strong opinions at this, like especially after the last week's patch. I haven't gotten enough games in to develop any. I'm trying to think. I know. One of the funnier ones was shortly. It must have been like 2018. I can't remember all the casters, but there was this one caster from HGC that was just ripping on like a Rainer rework where he had gotten the Exterminator talent up to like 75% bonus damage or whatever on mercs and minions, and or non-heroes, and I was really heavily playing with that a lot, just because at that point in time, like you could wave clear, take any minion camp. I mean, on Hanamura, you could take the samurai by yourself right off, like at level 1, and it was just I thought it was completely broken. At least, man, maybe that's a point of the area that I play with, which could be like ranging between platinum and silver, right? Somewhere in that ballpark. And just being able to do whatever you want and just like reduce the need for people to do things. You can get ahead of the macro play on the map with Exterminator.
Yeah.
And it was like a week later that they got nerfed from 75 to the 50% where it's currently at. Excuse me.
Was this?
Yeah.
I think this was Jayhow, right? Maybe you weren't saying that because you were protecting his identity.
Oh yeah, it was Jayhow. I couldn't remember. I haven't watched. I haven't seen him on as much recently myself. I'm personally a lot busier than what I used to be, but I remember seeing that and being like watching him say that, and I was just like, you idiot. Like you're just missing the ball there, like entirely. But I don't know.
Interesting. I mean, that's a pretty hot take. Jay Howe is an idiot. I mean, there we go.
He knows a lot. He knows a lot.
That's definitely not going to get clipped out of context.
I hope so. I'll be pretty happy with that. And then Dagnie's an idiot. We can high five later.
There you go. Any other hot takes? And they can be from the old stuff too.
Let's see. I haven't played with BMed very much, but I've been playing with BMed a lot more lately, and they're a really impressive either Vikings or Samuro player. I think that is a hot take in and of itself.
Interesting. Like that Samuro and Vikings can be super great, or that like BMed is that he's just
BMed is super great.
Yeah.
And I guess the other one would be Brainer brings the big brain moves.
That might be a hot take for some. That's Brainer's like, that's his MO though. That's what he thinks for sure. Interesting. I'm curious, like HGC, like were you a big watcher of HGC and of the pro scene?
Yes, there was a little bit too much that I could keep up with at that point in time. I was definitely in grad school, so like I would watch as much as I could because it was I loved watching Dreadnought and Gillyweed cast. Like that's just super awesome. Like the chemistry that they had and just calling out a game that is so fascinating kind of thing. Like I think Dreadnought is probably one of the raddest like casters. Like as far as the energy that he was capturing, that he was trying to bring to the game. So whenever he was doing, I was trying to watch a lot of that. I mean, if you're calling out other other figureheads, Grubby was somebody that I probably watched way too much several years ago before he went back into Warcraft 3 and then the Reforged nonsense and then back again. I think Grubby kind of emulates a lot of that feeling that just kind of playing to get better in general. Like I know he's been competitive in the past, but you know it's generally a pretty positive, attitude to most games. Like I'd actually watch that with my kid from time to time when he was really young. So
Interesting.
I know that a lot of these questions. Oh, sorry. Did you have a follow-up, Stoic?
No. I'm just thinking about like the idea of like playing video games with a child, but then like watching video game personalities with a child as like not only like do we have this game, but like emulating like this is a person who also plays this game that like, and I'm exposing you to this because like if you were gonna grow up to be someone who's like Grubby, like that's a cool video game person to grow up to be like. That no question. I was just thinking that was all my thoughts as I leaned back and went, huh.
I mean, I had a good fun time laughing at was it Mean Fair quite a bit, but I definitely wasn't watching that with me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, his kid. I think that's one thing that's really interesting with the game is like, one hot take, probably the most important hot take. You know, the thing that I do for the most research or the most. Not research. The people that I watch the most is Into the Nexus, like Kyle and Garrett. Like I message them periodically, like while they're doing their thing. But the amount of times that I've watched their show is, I don't know. I would say I probably like for Into the Nexus, I've probably watched through 75% of their podcasts over the course of the last 5 years.
Wow, impressive.
Just great personalities, just kind of talking about the game, talking about Blizzard in general, talking about life in general. They'll bring in pretty rad people like Not Paradox or I can't remember the developer that just switched teams, but it was Mr. X, but I can't remember his real name, which is the opposite way of remembering it. Yeah, just a great show, and it's like just positive attitudes, like hyped about the game, wanting to see changes. Like that's what like, when you're playing this game, like the game's fun, but it's when you get like this patch change ups or a new hero introduced, it's like that really kind of adds a new like life to the game, or like a new puzzle to solve, like Kyle always calls out. Like yeah, it'd be a shame if I didn't like really give a massive hats to those guys. And I don't know, I know Valks watches them periodically. I see him throwing comments in their show's chat. But like as far as like community wide, like they I think they're probably pretty top notch, especially for long lasting. Especially with Garrett buying Hot Slogs or whatever he did with that, and kind of resurrecting that, because I know that wasn't in his wheelhouse as far as project managing development, and then just spun that up. And Hot Slogs never really looked like it was the most efficient resource website. But so kudos to both of them in their own regards.
Definitely a quality product for sure.
Yeah. Grade A individuals.
Yeah. Corinne, what were you going to say before I began thinking about having my child grow up to be like Grubby?
Well, yeah, it's actually kind of related to that. I was curious because I was going to preface it with, I know that these questions have been kind of out of order. But I was curious how becoming a parent has kind of affected, because I mean, you mentioned before that you've been playing games for 25 plus years, right? I feel like it's probably accurate to say that you are a gamer, right? Like, how do you feel like becoming a parent has kind of changed that or affected that?
I think the gut reaction is it's humbling in a way. Like, and when I say that, I know when I was younger, I wasn't too concerned if I was toxic or mean or just an all around bad person, probably. And then that's coming up through like teenage years, right? Like just being, yeah. I think the humbling part is like it changes your perspective of realizing that you're not the younger person. You're probably not the youngest person playing the game anymore, right? Like you're probably an older person. You're probably, I don't know. I think maybe the way I would think about it would be more along the lines is, would I want my kid to be playing with me right now? Would I be embarrassed if my kid saw me playing this way, right? And so that's kind of where it like really kind of hits a checkpoint for yourself to, I think that's what for me, what I've been learning having kids is like, is this who I want to be perceived as? Because from my own in a life where I wasn't responsible for anybody else, when it was just myself, that wasn't a thing that mattered as much. But now that I do have those, now that I do have people looking up to me, I want to take care of those as much as possible, or at least honor those in whatever way that I can, and not be as foolish as I probably once was.
That's really, I want to say inspirational. Like you feel like your kids have kind of made you a better person in a way.
Mm-hmm.
That's really awesome.
It's pretty deep. I'm thinking about like all those people who like get so salty in Storm League, and imagine like, would you want your kid to act like you are right now, like just like flaming someone on their keyboard? Like,
that's a very dad thing to say, right?
Yeah, it is.
But I mean, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, right? Like I do flame people from time to time, and then I look back and think on it, it's like it really kicks me in, it's like, why am I doing that? Like, what am I hoping to accomplish? Am I really trying to teach something to that person? No. Like, I'm just angry, and I wish it would have been better. Like, is that the best way? Well, no. Okay, what's the thing to do better next time? Just add more information, try and make it more neutral language. Don't try and get that dig in that makes them know that that was not a good thing to do, right? That was a stupid thing. You don't say that. Just I think one thing that I definitely rely on a lot more is like muting people in game, because that if I'm having a period where I'm experiencing a lot of tilt in solo play, so that kind of saves me from having that line of communication, and then I'm just responding to where people are at on the map, and sometimes pinging pinging can definitely be, a harassment point too from time to time. So,
Okay, this is like also a pretty deep question.
all right,
So,
let's go. GME stonks. No,
I do you, and I'm actually not even sure where this goes, but like gaming like brings out this toxic side of people. Like, do you find that you have any of these like, and toxic like is such this umbrella word, but like, do you find that you have these toxic tendencies in real life?
yeah. So conflict resolution is kind of like the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like that we've talked about, like that time sensitive, all important objective or whatever thing you're trying to accomplish, and having that pressure build up. This needs to happen right now. So, and I mean, I've even called out like in restaurants, you're kind of constantly dealing with these time sensitive, high build up pressure things. Like in that life, I'd gotten to the point where that was completely numbed out, and you're able, sometimes you get, tripped up, but not the majority of the time is when you're in the pressure cooker, you're in a good spot. In my current role, there's a lot more politics. And it's determining on how much you need to see what you're asserting get executed on is a good way of saying it, right? Like, how important is it that what you're fighting for is the right thing, or how necessary is it? And so that's kind of like, and that's from like my professional world of like working with integrated teams, and how much advocating for users there are as a user experience researcher, advocating for the users versus like the business's needs, and finding some way to justify more work or spend more money on developing out some feature kind of thing, or try and solving a very difficult problem. And so that's different, because like there's still the time sensitive portion of it, but it's not the timeliness isn't the same, like down to the minute. You have time to, more like chess, think about your moves, think about your conversational points, think about what decisions you need to make. And then, when you're actually making your moves or playing them out, right, you've got kind of limited time to make those moves within, or make those statements within. So I think that's close. One of, sorry, I'm doing a quick lean over to try and find the guy's name.
All good.
One of the books I was reading in grad school was, I can't remember what it's called. His name, the author's name is Gary Klein, and he's done some like ethnographic studies, or not studies, but like just like watching how different people do work, and how one of his bigger pieces is adaptive decision making. And what that is how do people make decisions in time, within like contexts of work that they know, right? And like I think one of the more famous pieces that's come out of his work was kind of talking about following around a really well experienced fire chief, right, and going along with firemen from house to house to house, or from house fire to house fire to house fire. And that's an upgrade from dumpster fires, right? But one of the things, there's this one story where, for whatever reason, they were only able to get one like tank of water to this place that was burning, and the fire hydrant that they had hooked up was like not malfunctioning, but didn't have water access for some reason. So they had limited resources, and this place was going up pretty good. And the guy was able to look at this building starting to go up pretty good, and called out to his team to punch down, like focus all the water that we had in the tank, kind of in the basement area off to the left, and just empty the thing. The tank of water out, and so that's what they did, and the fire went out. And so this Gary Klein went back and talked to the guy after the fact, and it's like, so like that was like very decisive decision making that you were making at that point in time. Like, what made you know? Like, what were all the indicators that if you put that was where you needed to focus your effort? Like, the amount of water that you had. And the guy's response was, it's like, if it wasn't there, then then we wouldn't have had enough water to save the building to begin with. So he was able to eliminate all the other possibilities and be like, this is the only problem that we can solve. And if it's there, great. And if it's not, then we can't do anything about it. And he's got a lot of questions in there. Is like, how much information is too much information, or can you wait for more information? It's kind of like these polarizing scales of when do you make your decision, kind of thing. And it's got a lot of really good nuggets in there as far as like when you're really diving into decision making, and especially in time crunches, kind of thing. So, and how people respond to that.
So, tying that into HOTS, in your opinion, what do you feel like is too much information?
Oh man, too much information. I mean, no fog of war. I think an example of like, it's not too much information, right? Like that's like traps would be the kind of the closest thing I would think to too much information. Like when somebody purposefully throws, like they're missing from the map, and the one person that's easily gankable shows up. Like that's an expression of a team trying to throw up a little bit of information to get people to come into. Too much information in the regards of what I was just describing. I think a better way of saying that would be an example of a game where you're kind of against the wall and you miss your opportunity for the right engage. And yeah, I think it's so maybe like if you have 20 and they're coming up on 19, but they've been doing better team fights than you, if you're not able to get that engage when you have that advantage, or not back, I don't know, something along those lines. Like I think that right information is like opportunity would be a better time, is when you miss your opportunity is closer to that piece, because you have had the advantage and you don't take it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, my thinking also there is like, and that could, if you have 20 and they have 19 and they've been doing good team fights, but now you're coming in with a good advantage, but there could definitely be this, like, my thinking, like, my too much information there could be like, your team is talking about it too much. Like you have the level 20s, which is like, that's the talent tier of all talent tier advantages.
Right.
And if your team starts going, oh, they've been fighting well, we should do this micro adjustment of positioning, and you DPS player, you've been sucking, you should stop sucking. Like there could be too much information happening in that moment where it prevents you from having this, just walk at them and press the R button and win the fight and end the game. Like you miss out that opportunity because there's too much going on and you can't do anything with all that information.
A lot of dithering, you're almost paralyzed.
Yeah, that was my thing of what you just described there.
It's interesting what you mentioned before, like the idea of no fog of war. I'm trying to think of what that would do to the game if that was like an ARM or something. Like nobody would die. Like what would the game?
I mean, people would die.
Do you think so? I mean, if you would never be able to gank anyone.
Ganking. I don't know. Maybe the nature in ganking would change, right? You're not leveraging the off the map aspect. It becomes positioning, right? Like you go, say if you're on a 3-lane map, you have 5 people take the mid, and then if somebody's top and somebody's bottom, you just pick whichever one has the worst escape and you charge straight towards them, and they see you coming, and then they're just hoping to be able to get away. And all you need to do is like dismount them with one hero, or keep them kind of locked down temporarily enough for the rest of the team to get there. You can gank them, and then the rest of their team responding to it can come late. Like that even happens in the current state, but I don't know.
I think, in both like two non-serious, but still like indicative things is one, like my thinking is people already don't use their mini maps. Like fog of war, they don't need the fog. Screw, there could be like, they could literally have one team could have the map hack of no fog of war, and the other team could have no vision whatsoever. The fog of war team could still lose if they never look at the mini map, right? Like some people just didn't ever install the DLC that came with the game. The other one is like I think globals would go crazy. Like imagine if you could like locust build Abathur would be so OP if you didn't have fog of war, because you could just Z behind the keep at any moment and drop all 5 locusts and then hearth home, because there's nothing stopping you from doing that. And like the only way to defend that would be if the other team sits in base. Those are both ridiculous examples, but one was just a chance to bash some people that don't look at the minimap.
True.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at it from the way is like that people, you know, if both parties have all the information, at least in that regard, right, then the other information that's still hidden from them becomes cooldowns, right? That's still a thing. Like there's still other pieces there, like what's your ult timings, and having to have that memorized and knowing what that is. And yeah, if you're following people around the map really good, then you'll probably have a better idea of what that is rather than what you're playing on, you know? So.
For sure. I asked you before about how parenting affected gaming. I was kind of curious if there was anything on the inverse, right? Has there like been a game, HOTS or not, that I know we kind of touched on like lessons and stuff earlier, but like any game that's kind of affected you as a parent?
Yeah, I don't know if it's what is it? So I don't think it's a specific game, but this talks back to more that concept of like competition and collaboration. And a thing that I've been telling my son, and my wife's kind of pushed back on this a little bit with me, is making like he's at this age where he says, I love you, and then I say I love you back, and then he says I love you more, and it's like no, I love you more, and then it's like well I love you plus 10,000, and it's like, and then he beats me to I love you to infinity, right? Like something adorable like that. And that's a fun game, but it's like one of the things that I've been kind of thinking about more is that love is not a competition, and so I've been starting to say that to him. And my wife, I'm not sure what part she's not on board with, but like we haven't had enough talks back and forth into it, but I don't know, like I being a man, or being a person who identifies as a man, there's a lot of weird competition against like a masculine identity comparing men against other men, and it leads into a lot of competition, and it's kind of like the polite way of saying that, and it doesn't have to be that way, like and so I think one small effort that I'm looking at that is I don't want, God, what is it? Is it like The Rock, where there's like Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage telling a story about dating the prom queen or something along those lines? And it's like it's this weird objectification of the your partners in life, and it's like you don't win by, I don't know, it's objectifying or subjectifying partners. Like you want them to be on your team, you want to work together to find the most fulfillment, or the most, you know, being in alignment and working towards whatever goals together. It's like literally like being on the same team. And so that's in and of itself a form of collaboration rather than kind of competition. And so that's kind of where I've been grounding that statement of love is not a competition from.
Do you ever use any strategies with any of your HOTS teams that like to build unity that you've used with your wife or with your sons?
I don't say I've used strategies with my wife or son.
I don't mean to sound like a robot. Sorry.
No, I know what you mean. Like, I know but in work, I do a lot of like workshops that like you're trying to build alignment, right? And so I'm trying to think. I think with the Nexomania one group and maybe one of our NGS teams, I think I tried doing like a goal setting workshop, I think, of some sort. And it wasn't like a workshop, but it was like pulling out a slide deck and being like, so what are your goals when you want to do this? Like, what do you want to get out of this kind of thing? And Crandon text, you can tell me if I'm wrong, and I didn't do that with you, but it was kind of like, like what is the value, when you want to get out of it, and at the end of the season, what do you want to have accomplished? Something along those lines. So I've used that a couple of times. Just with that, that's the goal of like hitting some level of team alignment, right? It's like having your cards out on the table of like, what is it that you want to accomplish during this constrained duration? And so that way we can better get you closer to that.
Do you find that that's kind of like an awkward thing to do with like gamers on the internet?
It could be. I mean, I could see a world where that's the case, but I mean, if you're wanting to sign up for organized play, then like having that honest conversation at the outset is pretty easy, I think. But I also do that a lot more often in business settings, so it might not be for some people.
I mean, do you have any tips for the team that might be like what week 3 of NGS, like who might like be in this weird spot where they need to get that alignment out? Like, how does somebody who is not the captain, who's just like playing on this team but like recognizes they want the team to get to the next level, like how do they bring this up in a non-confrontational and non-uncomfortable way?
Right. I think part of that comes up with what does that individual want to accomplish and what does the rest of the team want to accomplish, right? And like if one person wants to get to the next level and the rest of the group is just wanting to see what NGS is all about kind of thing, or like get, dip their toes in the pool a little bit, like, that's managing expectations. And that's kind of where that's at. And I think, I don't know, it's like, being able to have conversations like that really, or communicating is so critical. And that's communicating out of game, right? Not when you're in the heat of it, right? Like you can't teach people when you're on a time duration between mercs or objectives or whatever. It's, having that space to reflect on what's going on. I think, a good thing, and I can't imagine somebody watching this at this point in time would be on a team that is like lost every game in NGS. Like that's kind of one of the things I really feel bad about through all these kind of organized competitions is like there's not like an intervention or like a go attaboy team kind of thing for the people who've lost every single game halfway through the season or halfway through the tournament, and they kind of break up towards the later half just because they're outclassed or out something kind of thing. It would be really it'd be a lot more valuable to find a way to like uplift those people that are, it's like what's something that you could be doing better, or because those are the people that would like break out or drop off or not sign up for the next season and not try to improve, but they wanted to for a little bit and things just didn't have the organization or the structure or anything behind it, right? Versus the people who are winning the tournament, winning the bracket or whatever it is, because it's it's an arbitrary skill constraint, right? So like I don't know, something along those lines would be a good spot for improvement.
I mean, from your perspective as a UX guy, what could NGS do to reduce churn of those teams you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like I just called out would be, when teams lose 3 games in a row, have some. I mean, like this is a thing that I like as a UX, as a professional, I would go ask those individuals like, what's something that NGS could do to better support you and your team's success in the future, right? That's a professional one.
Yeah.
From like more of a hot take or my opinion, I would say like NGS, like reaching out to teams that have been losing consistently. It's like, is it that you need to move up or down a bracket? Is there some like communicational thing? Like how is your team having fun? Like what are some ways that your team could be having more fun? And that's from my value point of the game is to be played for fun, right? Like if their value is the game is to be played to win, right? But they're in like Division E, they've got a long ways to go. Like maybe on like the super seeds, whatever super divisions are, their goals are probably closer to winning and beating out these tiers because they have like the fun aspect, the teamwork, all these things kind of like they've hit those points of excellence and alignment and all that jazz of excellence to kind of have other problems. So
one more question on this same vein. Like let's say NGS like creates this task force that is going to be analyzing teams that are losing consistently, and they build a focus group of people to go reach out and like have these chats. What does NGS do with that? What do you think NGS should do with that data? Like how do they gather all this quantitative data or qualitative data, and then where do they go from there? How do they improve the product?
Right. I mean, like that comes like what do they like? The part right off the bat is you want to make sure that you're asking the team that it's like, do you want to engage or talk with us, kind of thing, making sure you're getting permission and consent and this, that, and that. If you're looking to like take that information that they're providing and moving it forward, right, in some meaningful fashion, right, for NGS's purposes. If you're just looking at it from their perspectives and just having a conversation, that's a little bit different. What should NGS do about that? What do they do with that data? Well, it's like the first piece is, you know, start to have those conversations with those teams that are losing and hear a lot, and hearing where their problems are and how they could potentially, like, what would it take to get them to sign up for the next season? Because I think NGS's goal would be to have that same team sign up for the next season. Whether that's that losing team's goal, that's not necessarily the case. So you want to find out each losing teams, and this is kind of I'm kind of going off the deep end a little bit here. Apologies. Will have different goals, like whether it's to win, to get better at this one thing, or that, you know, these people, one individual isn't working with the team, or three, like this just isn't working out, kind of thing. So they're going to end up with like a bunch of like social embedded problems that are kind of gnarly and messy, right? But on the first couple of waves, it's like just figuring out what those general patterns are. And then you can start looking at, okay, this is the pattern that we're seeing. What's some solutions that's worked out for other people, right? So and that comes a lot with talking to your player base. Who are the people who have been successful, right? You can look at the one side that's had a lot of just not destructive, but like the teams that have self imploded. But you can also look at teams that haven't played together in the past, because they do have that data, and what's worked well for them, and then try and connect those dots.
Interesting. I think it makes sense. There's a lot that we don't know, like from like our perspective, like we're just players. Like what is NGS's goal to like reduce churn or improve retention, or is, and I guess that would depend on what they do with that data. But like we've made some assumptions, and that's fair.
A lot of assumptions there. That one, I think that's a fair one. Like, because if they run out of teams to keep playing, then they're not going to keep playing, right? And that's a real community problem, right? And that's where toxicity kind of comes into, where toxicity is a problem, is because it makes the game unfun and people won't log in and play next time. So you get a lower population, less money, less skins, less heroes, all the things and sad days for everybody. So, I mean, I think it's a fair assumption. It's like you want to keep the machine turning in some way, shape, or form. And I think that would be some low-hanging fruit to look at.
Yeah.
Especially because they've got ways to contact them, either through Discord or through in-game chat, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what the, like you said, the incentives for NGS to improve and how that would be, other than.
Well,
on the topic of like playing to win versus playing for fun, it's semi-related. A question from Nugs in the podcast question channel. It's a question for Dagnie. With things like reaction time decreasing with age, some people say that they are just not as good at gaming as they were decades ago.
Sure.
Since you brought up the topic of age, we were talking about that earlier. Is this something that concerns you, or are you just going to keep playing HOTS competitively as long as you're having fun?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I'll keep playing competitively, right? I think I hit my in ranked play. I hit like Diamond 5 or 4 the season that before, or that I had spinal surgery, and then I went down to silver, in the mid silvers, which was like the lowest I've ever had. Because of some physical limitations, right? Like my reaction timing went away. I still played the game. It felt bad dropping down ranks, but, you know, like my There's two pieces to that, right? Like in the range that I kind of claim to be in between plat and silver, I don't think that it's my reaction timing that makes me good at the game or bad at the game. I'm sure there is a component of that affects it, right? Like whether I'm able to get away with what I'm thinking. But there's ways that you can plan ahead or anticipate or have a higher level strategy piece in play kind of thing. So whether I'm hitting my skill shots or not, like being in the right place at the right time or finding a way to bait people in the right way. Like I'm not a god at any of those playmaking capabilities, but that component can definitely make up for a lot of skill components, at least within that range. I can't speak for anybody, diamond masters or grandmasters. I've definitely played against Smurfs that I can't react to in time, right? Or they're able to outmaneuver me or out whatever, and it feels bad, but that's just not the field that I play in consistently. So that said, with that, like I do enjoy slamming my head against a wall, like in the way of like playing against people who are a heck of a lot better than me, because then you can learn tips and learning through failures is some of the best way to learn, and so I think that's kind of a shortcoming of ranked play in general, where you're always playing within this ambiguous constraint of where you're ranked at, kind of thing. Like it would be cool to get bumped up arbitrarily and know that you're playing out of your league a little bit from time to time, and it'd be cool the other way to where you like were randomly placed into a game that you're able to stomp around and have fun rather than using like a Smurf option. Like I don't know how you would justify that or how that would look implementing that, but like that would be kind of an attribute that I'd be interested in seeing how that can potentially be explored in the future.
It's an interesting idea with the recent like rise of these battle royale games. They become extremely popular, and I remember when there was this big community outcry when Fortnite went to this I don't know, ranked based matchmaking, where instead of having this lobby of 100 random people, if you were really good, you only played against people who were also really good, and that fundamentally changed the nature
Right.
Of the game. I mean, and I'm curious, like for what you described, if you were a developer of a battle royale game, would you want like which would you go with, the open matchmaking, or would you go with this ranked based? I'm curious.
I mean, I think that's kind of where you have the opportunity to have like like if you're having an open or a quick match, right? I think I don't know which game it is. Like I've seen an implementation of quick match, a quick draft format where you get into the quickest game you can, and then it's a race to click the hero that you want. And first person who clicks on it, that's the one who gets it selected, kind of thing. And it just kind of like sorts itself out that way. But that doesn't address like the MMR differential. Yeah, I couldn't readily pull out a good answer other than saying like the quickest matchup should be one where it's just a complete fiesta as far as ranking and heroes and whatever. I'm not sure if quick match actually takes into like your hero level into that, or how much you've played that particular hero into the matchmaking portion, which they might. I would expect that they would in some way, shape, or form, but they probably don't. The one thing again, back to Nugs' point, like I know when HGC got canceled, as far as like talking about like reaction times and how do you play things. I know Apex Legends came out at that point in time, and I popped on and played that quite a bit. And I'm terrible at first person shooters, and I wasn't a big fan of Overwatch as far as like that play style, because I just can't hit. I'm terrible at shooting. My reaction speed is old man speed. But it's also to that same point is like I played it enough to where you can start learning where people would want to be going, what behaviors they're trying to be going after, and then you can kind of get some advantages that way. Even though the majority of the player base was much better, much more accurate than I was. Like I could definitely find ways to still, I don't know, get up or survive longer or out maneuver people. because surviving, you can just go hide in a bush somewhere and never be found, right? That's not the point of that, but get the upper hand. You can look for ways to get the upper hand in non-normal ways.
Interesting. Corinne, you were going to ask a question before I jumped off brought up the random battle royale.
I lost that one at this point.
Oh, dang. I'm sorry, brother.
No, it's cool. It's cool. I'm not sure if you have the chat pulled up, Dagnie, but there's someone here who says, "Yo, it's me, Scotty. Take this follow." I don't know if that's someone you know.
I don't know. I'm not looking at chat. I'm just in Discord. What's the person's name?
JSM the first. I don't know. I assume.
I don't either. They can make fun of me later.
All right.
I think this is a buddy of mine. Yeah. Anyway, what was it? I lost my train of thought. I think my boy Scotty here.
What up, Scotty? How you doing?
Yeah, I mean, Corinne, what other questions do you have?
No, I think that's everything. I was gonna say we've passed the 2-hour mark.
Oh dang!
Was there anything that
Longest
you were? I think we're pushing it. Okay. Was there any questions that you were like expecting us to ask that we didn't?
I don't think so. No, I didn't have any expectations coming in. I was definitely putting kids to bed and hearing a cat wanting to be fed and rushing around to show up on time.
Is there a question that you wish we would have asked that we didn't? Something a soapbox you'd love to stand on?
I don't have it. Yeah, no. Okay, maybe Deathwing. Deathwing, I've been really interested in and seeing how his unstoppable brings value to like counters crowd control comps. Because when you're playing in a lot of like say gang squad oriented or competitive play, like you're starting to keep in mind like what crowd controls are you able to like stack up on the team, and I've been really enjoying seeing how Deathwing kind of counters that aspect into the game in and of itself.
Deathwing's a spicy last pick. Like Hammer used to be this like, oh, you can just win a draft by picking Hammer, but Deathwing is that, but like 10 times over. Just like, yep, sorry, Deathwing, can't kill it. Goodbye.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with that hero and the way that he feels epic, but is a single like epic like a Cho'Gall, right? Feels big and like a challenge, but then at the same time, it's it's got maybe a little bit more power level than like a normal or a regular any other hero kind of thing. But then you can take them out pretty easily as well. So
yeah,
I'm really impressed with how that implementation goes. And I know one of my friends is very big anti Deathwing implementation into the game, like just total garbage hero. And it's like, I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, Deathwing's definitely epic, but not oppressive. In the same way that Murky is like underwhelming, but intentionally so. Like it's good design, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that came out a couple of BlizzCons ago was how they were doing like power leveling. Like there's not a pie chart, but like how they were like tracking like the damage type and like what out of what ability the hero was getting and getting out. I maybe I'll have to look that up again later. But there's like some of the analytics that internally BlizzCon has on each specific hero. I really wish that information was finding a way to get exposed to the player base. Just because, not to like make it better or worse kind of thing, just because it's like an interesting way of thinking about your performance. Are either of you familiar with that piece?
It's showing what kind of numbers?
It would be like for each hero, your QWE, right? Like versus your ult, like tracking. They have the ability to track the total damage that your QWE and R does throughout the game, and your basic abilities, and being able to see like what did you do with each of those abilities, kind of thing at that level. Just a roundabout way of saying more stats, but
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I realized there was a question actually I wanted to ask you earlier and forgot about. So you gave us the backstory on Dagnie, but in the CCS Discord, you're most certainly Dagnie. Was there like a phony or a duplicate that was trying to steal the name Dagnie from you, or where did that come about?
No, at some point, my what was that? I think I had Galt as my alt's name is like referencing from like the Ayn Rand stuff, and I've been moving away from like calling that out more and readily. And so I changed it to sort of Dagny because I was also able to grab sort of Dagny's Twitch ID, and so going from playing Dagny to sort of Dagny to popping into CCS's chat and being most certainly Dagny seemed like the natural approach.
Makes sense.
In regards to the data thing, I'm pretty sure that there is somebody has something you can do something with. Like I know Stats the Storm has a lot of this information, and I can't remember what it is, but Cav has. I think maybe it was Spazzo or somebody has made some replay parser, and Cav I know Cav has it, so you can like see like
Okay.
Tychus grenade he took. The level 7 grenade talent, and here's how much damage he got from that in a specific game.
Okay.
I can't remember what it is or where to get it, but I'm sure on the Nexus Schoolhouse you can find it because that's something that I've been meaning to get into, because I'm always fascinated. Like, was it really worth it to go Q build this game? Whether it be Vala or Cassie, whoever it is. Like, was Q build really the hot this game, or did you actually just click on there a bunch more?
Right.
Anyway,
right.
I was completely distracted.
No, that's great. I'll try and ping some. I haven't thought to ping anybody within the community for that, like some sort of solution for that.
Yeah, it's there. I've seen Cav use it on his streams. Yeah, and Nugs in chat just dropped the Stats of the Storm. Can give some of that.
Awesome. Thanks, Nugs.
So as we're kind of wrapping up here, just want to take a moment, and the floor is entirely yours. If there's any other topics you want to talk about, or any shout outs you want to make, or anything in that regard, the mic's yours.
Oh man, so I guess shout outs would be to CCS5. Thanks for having me so far into this NGS season and last Nexomania. Valk probably is a big Valk and Oz, and especially thanks for welcoming me into the CCS community, and then to past teams that I've played with. Hopefully we get to play again soon. So. And then Grenatix and Stoke, thanks for having me on tonight. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, it has been. It's been an absolute pleasure, Dagny. We're thankful that you came on. We're glad you're part of the CCS community. It's a great place to be, and we absolutely love being here. As far as business goes, our next guest is going to be Kelladorn on March 14th at 11 p.m. Here on twitch.tv/HLS Stoic. We appreciate you all for being here, hanging out with us for 2 hours, talking about some hots, talking about being a dad, all the good stuff.
Shout out to Valk's mom.
Shout out to Valk's mom. That's it, everybody. You've heard it here first. Shout out to Valk's mom. Thanks, everybody, for coming out tonight. We'll catch you guys in the Discord, and hopefully we see you back here next week with Kelladorn. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Dagny.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.